Hey guys, Pastor Sean coming to you with today's daily devotion. I'm reading a book by a fellow by the name of Mike Rowe. The name of the book is called The Way I Heard It. And it's a story of stories. Some of you who are in the older generation, in my generation, will remember Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story. And Mike Rowe does kind of the same thing, but it's called The Way I Heard It. And I thought about that as I was reading the book, and it's really kind of inspired me to think about different things. You know, the Bible was inspired by God, written down by holy men of old, and inspired by God. It is the breath of God. And the early time, the times of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the patriarchs, and even before that, from Adam to Seth, and on down through those lines, with Lamech and Noah and Methuselah, there's the right name, and all of those guys, they didn't write anything down. They didn't write any history down. They carved it into their staffs, but they also told the stories. They told it the way they heard it. Adam told it how he lived it, and then he told it to Seth, and Seth told it how he heard it. And it passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down. And then, of course, God sits Moses down on the top of the mountain. And not only does he give him the 10 Commandments, but Moses spends 40 days there with God, and God tells him the history of the world. And Moses writes it down. He writes it down the way he heard it. So many times our testimony, our story, our lifelong ambition needs to be told. It needs to be told. Your story is important because your story is part of His story. It's part of the story of Christ. It's part of the story of salvation. It's part of the story of the church in a whole. It's part of His Christ's story. And it doesn't need to die to history. It needs to stay alive. And we need to tell our story so that others can say, I remember when this happened. I've heard the story about when that happened. And I was told about this happening. And so that way we can look around and we can say, well, this is the way I heard it. This is the way it was told to me. This is where the history comes from. You know, I wasn't there in the 1800s when a couple of preachers defected from different churches and decided that there had to be something more. There had to be a better way, a deeper walk with God. There had to be more than just salvation. And those two ministers started what we now call the Church of God. They started the Christian Union, and it developed into the Church of God. And I wasn't there, but I've read the account of it. I've heard the stories. I've been told the history of the Church of God. I've read the history of the Church of God. And it inspires me. It inspires me to step out and do something unbelievable. It inspires me to do something miraculous. It inspires me to do something out of myself. God lets us know on many, many occasions that we need to step out on faith and trust God. You know, it's the run of the litter Gideon who goes and defeats the Midianite army. It's the young boy David who puts some stones in his packet and goes and fights and kills Goliath. It is usually somebody who's stepping out of their comfort zone into something miraculous. The perfect example is Peter getting out of the boat. Peter the fisherman, who understood the purpose of the boat, the safety of the boat, the sanctity of being in that boat. He gets out of the boat and walks on the water. He knew he couldn't walk on water, but he did it because God commanded him to. So, tell your story, and then take somebody else's story and be inspired by it. I promise you, God will not let you down. He will not leave you. He will not forsake you. He'll be with you every step of the way. I love you. I'm praying for you. I will see you again tomorrow. God bless you as always, is my prayer.